what can go wrong with this project? It was sleepless nights. 6, 7 years ago, we started talking about the future of the Macdonald Bridge and what was going to be needed. And we had to do something different.
They made the world for you and I. Yes, it's splendid, the world that's yours and mine. They made the world for you and I. They made the world for you and I. And it's splendid, our world is and round. Yes, it's splendid, the world that's yours and mine. Yeah. They made the world for you and
The Macdonald Bridge is a community bridge. The number of people that I've met over the years who have told me about their involvement in firsts, that they were involved in the first bridge walk, or they were pushed across the bridge in their baby carriage by their mother before the bridge was open. The Macdonald Bridge was about 55 years old when we first started talking about this project. We recognized that the road deck was separating from the floor beams, and the decision was made to take the bridge apart and put it back together again. We could have closed the bridge for 18 months, then reopened, but with a city of 450,000 people and over 100,000 vehicles traveling on the bridge every day, the option of closing the bridge for an extended period was not open to us. A project of this magnitude, where they've replaced the entire truss and road deck and reopened the bridge to traffic every day, had only been done once before. We were fortunate that our bridge engineers, COE, had completed the same work in the Macdonald's sister bridge, the Landsgate Bridge in Vancouver, British Columbia. As a result, the COE team brought a high level of experience and were on site throughout the project. Yeah, it's kind of a cool shot. Because of the complexity and the challenges we had with schedule and our attention to safety and the attention to timing, it was tough. It's been a very challenging project.
Yeah, and that's okay. It's been checked out.
I'm 1 year younger than the bridge. The bridge was opened in 55 and I was born in 56. I, of course, have no memory of the bridge being built, but I have had a chance to look at the photographs. I've seen some of the film. I don't believe that employers or society was as focused on safety, and we did have some fatalities during the construction of the bridge.
The first time I've seen this footage of it, so long ago it's hard to recognize. No doubt I worked with them all. There was a lot of injuries, yeah. And I mean, anybody that slipped and fell, there was no injury, they were dying so high up. We get up there one time, and the guy wouldn't pull us in. So you had a rope, they throw a rope out and pull you in so you get off of the tower. And the guy got mad about something, he wouldn't pull us in. We were hanging out there for about an hour and a half or something. There, I'm in the skip there, right here.
Yeah?
Yeah. I was giving signals. Oh, 24, yeah. I was the only young fellow.
Before this project,
we were building the world's biggest Ferris wheel behind the Flamingo in Vegas. You know, this bridge here is an important part of a lot of people's lives. It's a lifeline into the city. It's an iconic structure in the area. And, you know, people just want their bridge fixed.
All of our staff here take pride in what they've achieved, and they ought to, because they've delivered this for the public. John's been in this project for the last 7 or 8 years. It's been his life. When John Epple applied for this job here, he spoke to me and said, "Steve, this job is my life's dream. It's the one job I want to have." He may have had second thoughts about halfway through the Big Lift project.
This was something that was done for the tall ships back in 2000. So this is not how we wanted to do the Big Lift. I'm very tempted to pull out some of the artwork that my daughter's done now. Bridge is kind of running the family. I think she was 8 when she did this. I don't know if you can get the texture in that, but these bridges in the harbor, they actually feel like a bit of my family in a strange way, in that I feel like they're my children and I need to look after them, care for them, and be a steward for them. The reason it got named the Big Lift is because we were lifting 120-ton, 20-meter by 20-meter segments. So, a big lift. A retrofit on a bridge, we have to take it apart. And anytime you take something apart, it's at more risk of something going wrong. Here was the plan. For hours, the ironworkers would carefully cut out a section of the bridge and lower it onto a barge waiting in the harbor below. The replacement segment, which had already been fabricated nearby, was shipped in and hoisted into place. All this had to be completed in time to open the bridge for traffic Monday morning. This sequence was repeated 29 more times until we reached the Halifax side of the bridge. Here, the bridge sits over land, and we would no longer be able to bring the replacement segments in by barge. So with mere inches to spare on either side, we had to drive each segment on and off the bridge with a remote-controlled rig. This sequence was repeated 15 more times until the entire bridge was replaced, for a total of 46 deck segment replacements. Seeing the deck taken apart like that, something that we use every day, was exciting, but it was a little nerve-wracking too. So that first segment actually didn't go straight up, it actually had to tilt, go up, and slide all at the same time. So it was very complex to get it in and have it fit in. We were very fortunate to have the deck fabricators in our own backyard. Cherubini Metalworks is one of the few fabricators in the world that have the ability to create these deck segments, and lucky for us, they're just around the corner. Being able to meet with them face to face and see the segments being fabricated reduced project risk tremendously. At the ends of the new deck segment, we had to have a transition plate to the existing decks. Vehicles were bottoming out on it. Some vehicles, low vehicles. Oh, well, we had to have the transition plate because if we didn't, it was literally covering a gap, and if we didn't, then you know, the cars would have gone into the drink, and that's not acceptable, so.
You know, in October of 2015, we were challenged by 2 late openings in 1 week.
The late openings, they're an inconvenience, but they're a momentary inconvenience.
The bridge was supposed to open every morning at 5:30. After we put in the first segment on the first weekend, we didn't reopen the bridge until 9 or 9:30. That was tough in our pride because we had promised to have a project that didn't delay people.
Each time you have a late opening, you learn something. But the fact is, there is a risk of a late opening, and we embrace that risk.
So on the bridge, we used a yellow, what was painted yellow. It's a big lifting gantry. And on the gantry itself is the strand jacks that do the lifting and lowering of the bridge segments. So it's like a big hoist, if you like. So you're constantly doing this with the ropes as opposed to spooling it up on a drum.
They had problems moving the gantry, and instead of opening at 5:30 in the morning, we didn't open until 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
From those late openings, how many did we have? I think 4, much to the disappointment, I'm sure, of many commuters and others.
We made a decision to advise the contractor that they would not have the bridge again to work on until they could assure us that they were not going to have more delayed openings. When that decision was made in the boardroom that Friday morning, there was a huge sigh of relief. You could see everybody's shoulders come up about 8 inches. The pressure relief of knowing that we were taking control of this, because when the contractor has the bridge and they say, no, you can't have it yet, you're challenged, and things are out of your control.
I live in California, Northern California, north of San Francisco. The weather in Nova Scotia is significantly different than the weather in California. It would be really nice if these jobs were convenient to where I lived, but the fact is they aren't. So I go home, I don't know, maybe once every couple months, something like that. I miss being home, but again, that's part of the job. Steel has a coefficient of thermal expansion. That's a fancy name for it shrinks when it gets cold, it gets bigger when it gets hot. So that means when we're working in the winter, the bridge will move. It's like it's alive. The suspension bridge is really a living structure. It moves, it's flexible, it reacts to weight, it reacts to forces.
Because it was cold, it was shrinking, and all of the contraction was happening at one end of the bridge, which is where the bridge had raised up. Because it's like a clothesline. If you put clothes on one end, the shape of that cable changes. Same thing on a suspension bridge.
It got so cold for expansion joints and for the connections, we were afraid we were going to run out of movable limit. There was nothing we were going to be able to do. We'd have to close the bridge until it got warmer. I couldn't figure out how I was going to tell the public, I'm sorry, but your bridge is too cold. We can't open it today. We were doing the Sundance. You're awake at 2 o'clock in the morning and you check the temperature outside.
We had a contingency plan in place, which consisted of a few tractor semi-trailers loaded with gravel or with salt that we would go and park out on the bridge deck towards the Halifax end to push it back down so that it would balance out and cause the movement to happen more at the Dartmouth Tower.
It was, how do I tell this story? Thankfully, the weather got warmer and we got more work done.
Ironworkers are tough guys. I mean, they have to be. Remember, once we start and get into it, you can't stop till you're done. It's not like you can go home in the middle of the weekend and we'll just do it some other weekend because the weather's bad. Once we commit, once we start cutting the bridge apart, it's like launching a rocket. You can't stop. You can't stop till you're done. If you have a fear of heights, this job's not for you. I think everyone has a respect for height. If a guy is able to work safely, he's not going to be putting other people in harm's way. If you look at old-time footage, you will see that, in the old days, the guys wore nice hats, nice shirts, no harnesses, no one's tied off.
When you're walking up on steel, there's a danger of a lot of things happening. When we got to the top of the tower where I was supposed to crawl off, and he thought I was over the railing, and he let me. He let the line go in, and my leg hit the railing. And I saw stars and stripes and God knows what. I had to put a cast on it. I went back to work a few weeks later, yeah.
There's more than just the height. You know, there's things that are moving, there's things that are hot, things that are sharp, there's stored energy that you have to be careful of. There's all sorts of hazards in construction or hazards in this business, steel erection, ironwork, that, you know, a guy has to be cognizant of and respectful of. Because if you're not, you know, eventually you will hurt yourself.
In the past, I've referred to the replacement of a deck segment as being a symphony orchestra playing, where there's one person conducting and people are doing things to make that piece of music come through and be true and right on beat, and have all the clarinets, the trumpets come in at the right moment. That is a deck segment replacement.
Finally, in February, we had the last 2 segments installed in one weekend, and everybody celebrated. They're very proud of what they've achieved. I guess the sigh of relief was shared with me by the public.
Having that last segment go in, it was kind of like, I can sleep tonight.
It became a public project. It became a community project, and the public did own it. And we all persevered. We got through it.
When we put the last segment in, I just took a moment and I just sat back for a few minutes and just, yeah, I felt really proud.
But it is pretty cool to look at that stuff and know that, you know, somehow, somewhere, your fingerprints on it, some little way.
It felt like my career had led me to their doorstep and that I was meant to do this. They're kind of like part of my family. And I know it sounds corny, but I genuinely have that feeling.
I know I had people come up in public, don't know them, and just go, thanks. So.
When we erected the last piece there, the piece was down in the yard there over in the Navy Yard, and I don't know whether HHB is aware of this, but everybody who was there signed the piece, and then some other people signed the piece after that. You know, we all signed the piece.
I can see this being the creepy end to the video.